Welcome, everyone. My name is Ann Ziskos, and I will be your host today for our IHN Guest Speaker Series. I've been at IHN for 4 years. I'm a program advisor. I have a background in education, and I'm also an IHN grad myself. Our format for today. First, I'm going to introduce Ashleigh to you. Then she'll do her presentation. It's in around 45 minutes or so, followed by question and answer. And then finally, we'll conclude with a giveaway, which I'll explain shortly. And I am very pleased today to introduce you to Ashleigh Grave, CNP and author, and she'll be presenting today the topic, Navigating Dementia Together, Research, Prevention, and Support. And this is also the name of her book. So 2 of you will be lucky winners today, but you have to stay around till the end, and I'll pick the names then and let you know who will win those 2 books. Now, about Ashleigh. Ashleigh is a certified nutritional practitioner and a 2023 IHN graduate. With a specialized focus on brain health and cognitive decline, she brings a unique blend of clinical insight, lived experience, and a heart-centered approach to her work. Through her practice, holistically curated, Ashleigh supports individuals and families navigating cognitive changes with compassion, clarity, and practical nutrition strategies rooted in both science and soul. Her work is informed by functional medicine principles and a deep commitment to helping clients feel both empowered and supported on their healing journey. Ashleigh, we're delighted to have you with us today. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. And just want to check in, make sure everyone can see my screen right now.
It's looking good.
Excellent. So thank you everyone for joining. And my name's Ashleigh. I'm the author of Navigating Dementia Together. So I'm excited to share with you today my experience, my journey, and some of the learnings along the way. So where we're headed. So today I'm going to go into my experience supporting a loved one with dementia, why I wrote Navigating Dementia Together, a holistic guide to supporting a loved one with dementia. I'll go in a bit into the writing process. We'll talk about what is dementia, understanding it, prevention strategies, and support for caregivers and loved ones. And we're going to get into a little bit of a presentation on to the glymphatic system and brain health, which I'm excited to talk about because it's pretty new research and not a lot of people know much about it. And then we're going to go ahead and end with some questions. So a little about me. So I started my career as a social service worker. At the same time I was working in social work, I was also working in banking. I ended up staying in banking for 16 years. While I was working in banking, I went to school at IHN and I graduated in 2023. Started my business, Holistically Curated, in 2024. And around that time, I also started and have since completed a 1-year mental health fellowship through the Confident Clinician, where it was myself and a group of naturopathic doctors. And we did a deep dive into what the current research says about mental health, how to support mental health, what works, what's studied, and maybe what we may want to just leave aside for a bit. And the book I wrote has been published in March of 2025. So to start, why did I choose a career as a CNP? So when growing up in high school, we were always asked, what do you want to be when school's done? And I could never choose between a social worker, a teacher, or a nutritionist. So as I said, I started my career in social work and a homeless shelter. I worked in banking for 16 years with a number of roles from personal banking, teller, and learning development specialist. But I always had interest in nutrition, and that was and the ways that we can heal our bodies through diet and lifestyle. So when a friend who is also an IHN grad said she was interested in going to school for nutrition, I decided it was finally time to sign up and go and attend IHN with her. Social work, and I quickly realized that it was a very broken system that we had. I worked in the shelter system. Not a lot of people left. So not sure on what to do next. I stayed in banking while I figured it out, and eventually I found IHN for nutrition. And nutrition and health has always been deeply rooted in my family. My mom was a nurse. My brother was a personal trainer. So it was always very important subject throughout growing up in my household. And so when Western medicine failed me, a lot of my classmates talk about how they were failed by Western medicine, and I was no different. I struggled for years with no energy, chronic fatigue, and other issues that I knew were not fine, even though the blood work said that I was. I then went to a naturopathic doctor after 16 years of struggling and finding no answers, where we learned that I had actually a poor functioning thyroid. We worked together to heal that. Natural medicine, diet, and lifestyle helped change me to get my energy back after almost 2 years. So I was discovered the autoimmune condition prior to attending IHN. And when I started at school with IHN, the more we started learning um, in school was the more I started to understand why I was struggling. During the case studies that we do on ourselves, I realized all the signs that I had from childhood that were red flags, that something was wrong. So I eventually became my own test tub subject to see what worked. And so when my loved one was diagnosed with dementia, I felt like I was ready, or as ready as one could be. I saw signs of my loved one's memory and cognitive abilities were not what they used to be. Went to the family doctor for a memory test, and it was confirmed there was a bit of cognitive decline. The doctor told us that there's medication available to slow the process, but not reverse or eliminate the progression of dementia. So we left the office devastated, and after a few days of feeling sorry for myself, I decided that it was not going to be the case for my loved one. The body can heal itself, and we were going to make some changes. 6 months after that decision was made, we went back to the doctor. We had an improvement from the memory score from 21 to 28 that even the doctor was surprised. Um, I was not happy with the we can't do anything approach from the doctor. The diagnosis came as I was nearing graduation at IHN, and I decided it was time to take a natural approach. Through this journey, I tried a lot of things to help my loved one. Some worth the effort, some were not. Some things were heavily researched and scientifically backed, while others were perhaps more seen as woo-woo. But I didn't care. I was willing to try anything that I thought would help, and I'm glad I did. And it's through this journey that the book Navigating Dementia was created. So the book is called Navigating Dementia Together, a holistic guide to supporting a loved one with dementia. So the book was written for caregivers who have recently learned of a loved one's diagnosis with dementia. It has no fluff. It's information that's right to the point. It's broken down into 4 sections. What is dementia? How to support your health, how to support a loved one while supporting, how to support yourself while supporting a loved one with dementia, and how to support a loved one. The book was designed so that you can start at the beginning of the book or jump to whatever section it is that you need. So this is not a big book, and that's by design. It's short and sweet. I designed it that way. When starting the writing process, I asked myself, what would I have wanted when I just found out of the diagnosis? And this is what it was. So when you learn of a loved one's diagnosis, no matter what the diagnosis may be, you want information fast and you want it to be clear. So this book was designed to achieve that goal. Okay, so it's gonna move this over here. So this is the copy of the book. So when writing the book, I chose self-publishing for a number of reasons, but primarily was I wanted to be in control of the book, how it was written, and I was able to honor the purpose and reason I decided to write the book. I published my book on Amazon, and I also have copies myself. So if you do want to check out the book, there's a QR code to the Amazon page. Now we're going to get into a bit of the writing process. This is really high level overview. So when starting the writing process, I chose to work with a company called selfpublishing.com. If you want more information about them, let me know. They said they would send you two PDFs for free if you have any interest in writing a book. One is called Published, and one is the 24-hour book outline challenge. And if you decide that you do want to write a book and you want to work with this company, they said they're offering $250 off of their program with a referral from me. So if you're interested, you can email me at ashleighgrave@gmail.com and I'm happy to connect you with them. And the reason I chose to work with selfpublishing.com was because I knew nothing about writing a book or publishing a book. The program that I chose to be part of came with a number of features. And so mine came with a writing coach where she and I would meet at very specific points in the writing process. We had half an hour session so she could talk to me and help me through hiccups and bumps along the way. It also came with a course that literally broke down step by step, one stage at a time, on how to get started with the book writing process. So we're going to talk a bit about that today. And they also help with the cover design and as well as content formatting. They were able to put the book into a digital file to upload, as well as a file for print, one for print, one for ebook. They also had other features, group coaching calls, calendars. They had things like writing rooms where you could just attend simply to set your goal of that writing room session. What are you going to accomplish? They had some marketing, book launch office hours, and just a variety of different subjects that you could pop into throughout the process, which were kind of helpful. So the writing process, and again, this is very high level, is so the first stage is the mind mapping and outline. So the mind mapping is where you get all of your ideas onto a piece of paper. There's no real flow, it's just dropping your idea onto the sheet of paper. The second phase is going to be your rough draft and self-edits. This is where you organize your thoughts and ideas into a document and you're going to get writing. Final draft is you fleshed out your ideas, you finished your self-edits, and now you're ready for a final review. You check the flow, content, spelling, grammar, all of it. The cleaner your final draft is, the cheaper and easier the final editing process will be. Once the final editing is complete, it then gets sent, or if you choose to do it yourself, self-publishing did this for me, is they work on the cover design as well as the formatting into the two documents, so one for ebook and one for a print book. So starting with mind mapping. I don't know if you've done mind mapping before, but here's a bit of an example. Mind mapping is where you start with one big idea. So the blue circle is where your big idea will go, and then you're going to branch off into smaller ideas. Each smaller idea will likely have an even smaller idea. So this is how you organize your sections, your chapters, understand which subject goes where in your book. So for example, if I had my primary subject as dementia and how do I support a loved one, then we'll be right here. Off of that, I likely put memory boards, supplements, diet, lifestyle, exercise, and you kind of just keep going out until you've got all of your high level thoughts onto the page. Then you're going to do an outline and a rough draft. So first is you're going to create an outline from your mind map. The more information you have in your outline, the better. The outline should be as specific as you can. So you're going to want to organize it into so again, I said mine is 4 categories. And in those categories, I have individual chapters. What chapter heading belongs under what category? Once I had the chapter established, what my subject was going to be, I wrote my intro, I wrote a conclusion, and I wrote a couple sentences for each subject in that chapter of what I wanted to talk about. The bigger your outline is and the more thought, time, and energy you put into the outline, the less likely of having writer's block. Once you've done your outline, then you're going to get into your rough draft. This is where you take the information from your mind mapping session in your outline and you put it on paper and get to writing. When you get to the rough draft stage, first things first is you just want to write. You don't want to do your research. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just sit, you write, you get it all on piece of paper. Once you've done that, you're gonna edit your drafts, rough drafts a few times. At the second draft stage or the third draft stage, that's when you can come back in with any research you want to add in, any quotes. You can start to review what information do you want to keep, what do you want to get rid of. The more you're going to rewrite it a few times, and that's where you're going to get a bit more polished copy. Once you've done your final copy, you'll be ready to hand it off to an editor. I recommend hiring someone for this. And the cleaner your final copy is, like I said earlier, the cheaper and easier the process of the editing will be from your editor. Uh, and the reason why we like to have hired an editor is we spend so much time writing our books that the words make sense to us. The whole process, the flow, it all makes sense to us, but maybe not to others. So the editor will help look at the pieces that maybe need to be adjusted, or perhaps the maybe it needs a better flow. So once the professional editing is done, that's when it gets sent off for the formatting and cover design. So how long did this process take me? So again, my book is quite thin. I'll just show you. It's not big. It's a hand guide, and it's designed to be that way. It took me up from writing about 3.5 months. So I started my whole process in May of last year, and it was published in March. So in May, so I started it in May and was ready for a professional editor at the end of August. The mind mapping is the quickest. I probably had my mind map done in about an hour. The outline itself took about 3 weeks because I really wanted to capture everything I wanted to write about so I could get into a good flow when writing the rough draft and to avoid writer's block. The rough draft took about 9 weeks for me to complete, including my research and rewrites. The final draft took about 2 weeks. Professional editing was around 6 weeks. And through this, we did 3 different types of editing. And cover design took a few weeks while I was working with a professional editor. And the formatting took about 3 to 4 weeks once they received the final copy. If you have a bigger book, it's going to take you more time to write it. It may also take more time to do the research that you want to include. I chose to write what I knew first, and then I went back to go ahead and find the research to add in. Not everything in the book is backed by research, some is personal experience, and some of it is backed by research. During the writing process, I did take 2 weeks away from the writing process completely. I needed to step away and come back with fresh eyes. Um, and so I took 6 weeks with the editor, the 3 different types, just high level. The first round they did was about the flow of the content. And so you go deep into, does it make sense? Does it fit here? Does this subject even fit under this paragraph, under this chapter, or under this section? The second one, a round of editing, looks at sentence structure. Does the sentence flow? Do all the sentences flow together? And then the third round of editing was spelling, grammar, punctuations, everything else to make it a polished look. If you choose to write a book, I do recommend that you start your marketing plan as soon as possible so that it's ready to go once your final draft is done and that you stick to it. So now we're going to get into talking a bit about dementia. So understanding dementia. Alzheimer's Society of Canada explains that dementia is a broad term that describes a set of symptoms that can be included short and long-term memory loss, difficulties thinking, problem solving, or changes in mood and behavior. In a study published in Lancet 2024, the number of people at risk of cognitive impairment is expected to rise significantly in the coming years with the aging population. There are currently medications available that have been shown to remove amyloids, which is proteins in the brain that have stuck together to form plaque from the brain at the earliest stages of Alzheimer's, which can slow the cognitive decline. In an article written by Jewel, there was a major international study completed in 2022. And why this is important is when dementia was first discovered in the early 1900s, we had a little bit of knowledge learning about it, and then there was a massive lag in research. We just didn't understand what was going on. And then over the last about 10 years or so, we've had a lot more research come out. So this is a huge study done in 2022 that linked 42 genes to Alzheimer's for the first time. So bringing the total to 75 genes that we now know are associated with an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's. There are some risk factors: excessive alcohol consumption, traumatic brain injury, air pollution, hypertension, obesity, smoking, physical inactivity, diabetes, depression, lack of education in early life, hearing loss, and low social contact. So we know there is a genetic factor, but just because someone has the genes does not guarantee that they're going to have dementia. We can address the risk factors at any age to help prevent the odds of someone having dementia as they age. 40% of dementia diagnosis could be prevented or delayed by targeting risk factors. Almost half, 40%. I felt like this statistic from Jewel deserved its own slide because we're in control of the risk factors as natural health practitioners and CNPs. We have the tools and the knowledge to help prevent or delay a massive number of dementia cases. And in my case, I've even witnessed improvement in cognitive abilities with diet and lifestyle interventions post-diagnosis. New research is suggesting that diabetes is actually type 3, or sorry, that dementia is type 3 diabetes. In Linda DeWilt in 2017 explains that type 3 diabetes is a type of diabetes associated with Alzheimer's. It occurs when the neurons in the brain are unable to respond to insulin, which is responsible for essential tasks such as memory and learning. So we already know that diabetes is a risk factor for dementia, but some of the research is showing it can potentially be a cause of dementia. Type 3 diabetes is preventable through diet, lifestyle, education, and providing the individuals have access to the tools that they need. The more that I've learned about dementia, the more I see the need for CMPs to share their knowledge and connect with people. We can educate people on the impact of sugar, poor quality fats have on our body and our brain health. Um, Environmental factors. So I wrote a whole chunk in my book about this. Some environmental factors like poor water quality, mold, heavy metal, and pesticides should be considered when dealing with somebody with dementia. Heavy metal overload can mimic dementia, so can mold, and we may receive a diagnosis that isn't actually dementia. So if you're dealing with someone that has had a diagnosis or someone that you suspect may have dementia, it's a good idea to add on some sort of water filter, like a Berkey or an under the sink filter system. Even though a lot of people have city water that is clean, there are still pollutants in the water harming our bodies. Heavy metals can accumulate from a number of sources. So if you're dealing with someone with memory issues, it is a really good idea to do a heavy metal cleanse to see if there's any improvement. And pesticides are also a trigger for memory issues as well as other health concerns. So I recommend cutting down as much as possible of the pesticides, heavy metals, and any pollutants that we can. I'm not saying don't see the doctor. I'm just saying in addition to this is something that you might want to consider. So prevention strategies. So how can we work to prevent dementia? Exercise, quality diet, adequate protein, 1 gram of protein per ideal pound of body weight, or roughly 30 to 40 grams at each meal, adequate quality fats, and a quality breakfast with fats, fiber, and protein. So exercise is amazing for cognitive health. We can use exercise to create new neural pathways. And a lot of times there's also a socialization component to exercise. I personally love strength training because it supports the metabolism and helps us have better quality of life as we age. But any exercise will do. Even 30 minutes or 3 to 4 times a week can make a big difference. And with breakfast, we really want to make sure that we're starting the day with a quality breakfast that supports hormone health, blood sugar levels, has fiber for good digestion, because the breakfast is going to set the pace for the rest of the day with blood sugar management. And again, as we know, diabetes is a precursor to dementia, and the suspicion is that dementia is actually type 3 diabetes. Some supplements. So vitamin D. Vitamin D has a lot of health benefits overall, but it helps to reduce cognitive decline. It's a neuroprotector and it helps with mood. If you live in Canada, the US, a lot of countries that don't have full sun all year, it's definitely something we want to consider supplementing, even if you don't have any health issues. Essential fatty acids, fish oils, primrose oils, or omega 3s, and creatine, 5 to 10 milligrams per day. Um, creatine is amazing. There are a ton of research illustrating the benefits, not just for dementia, but prevention. I'm a firm believer that every woman that will experience menopause will benefit from creatine. It helps with brain and muscle function retention, both important for healthy aging. And as women go through menopause, there's bone loss, muscle loss, and women are more susceptible to Alzheimer's than men. So I really encourage all women that will experience menopause to get taking some creatine. Mental activities. Doing activities to strengthen the brain are going to be key. When we challenge our brains, we're building new neural pathways which help us grow our cognitive abilities. Some examples are puzzles, Sudokus, learning something new like a language, dance, activity, an exercise program, anything at all. We can look at podcasts, audiobooks, books, or magazines to learn some new information. And social connections. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, social isolation significantly increased a person's risk of premature death from all causes, with a 50% increased risk of dementia. When doing research for the book, I came across a study that looked at elderlies living in home cares and the impact social isolation had on them and how social connections benefited. In this group, they tried their best to do in-person events, but it wasn't always possible. So they would also add in technology like Zoom for video chats. They found in-person conversations had the most benefits for cognitive for to reduce cognitive impairments, and video chat still had benefit even though there, as you can imagine, was a lot of technology issues. They still found that moving through the technology issues was a better for their cognitive health and mental health. It just supported them better all around. Supporting a caregiver. Supporting caregivers. So stress management strategies are going to be key. At the end of the day, the stresses are going to come at your caregivers. There's not much we can do to stop the stress coming in, but we can work to support stress management strategies to build our resilience to stress. Breath work is another important thing that we can do. It's easily done. We can literally do it sitting in our cars, at stop signs, sitting at our desks, taking a pause in a conversation. Any kind of breath work is going to work, is going to do wonders for calming the nervous system. And we want to do everything we can to keep the nervous system as calm as possible because we don't want to also get our caregivers into burnout. Therapy will be huge. There's different types of therapies that you can go to. They have different resources like brain spotting, EMDR, tools that will help get people get their emotions up and out of their bodies and help them get into a more calm state. It's also a safe space for them to say whatever they feel, even if it's one of those moments where they don't mean what they're saying. It's a safe space to get it out. tapping. I'm not sure if you've heard about it. There's a tapping solution. There's also a man called Brad Yates. He has a lot of free tapping videos on YouTube, but essentially what you do is you tap on meridian points, so the karate point, and then you work through. And let's say it's for anxiety. How it works is you start with your tapping in the meridian points. You give a voice to the feeling, so call it anxiety. And acknowledge that you've got this anxiety, that it's stressful, that you struggle with it. And then you're going to come back and you're going to reframe it while continuing with the tapping to sort of help rewire your brain and how your brain thinks about that subject. And reframing language. This is going to be huge. When you think about it, if you're, for example, driving in your car to an appointment and you become overwhelmed with sadness or fear or whatever it may be, that can consume you and it can consume you fast. So instead, I highly recommend reframing the language. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, we're going to this appointment, it's going to be awful, you can then in turn say, I'm going to this appointment, which has given me 30 more minutes in each direction with this person I wouldn't have had before. And that can stop you from spiraling in an instant and bring you back to more calm, grounded, present state of being in the moment. Um, and so supplements. We want to include B vitamins because there's going to be a lot of extra stress in this situation, and our bodies will quickly burn through B vitamins and minerals. We can use ashwagandha to help calm the nervous system and vitamin D. So vitamin D is also not only is it good for cognitive health, it's also good for mental health. And how do we support a loved one? So supporting a loved one. Calendars may be really beneficial. Having a visual aid for your loved one to look at so they know what day of the week it is, what do they have planned today, if anything. You might want to write in important events, maybe birthdays, tasks. If every week on a Friday, for example, they go to the bank to organize bills or whatever it may be, you can get whatever kind of calendar works. It can be one that's printed, it can be a phone calendar, it can be one that you write out on a whiteboard every week, whatever works. Memory boards. They are going to be, in the beginning, it may not be as important, but memory boards can be good to add on things. Maybe they need to eat certain meals at certain times, and you want to write that in to check off, did I have them? Maybe it's to remind them of medication. Maybe you're going to put pictures of people that are important to them on the board so that when they wake up, they understand who it is that they're talking to. It could be care workers, family, friends, anybody that is going to be coming in. Be kind and empathetic, even after they just said the same thing 10 times in a row. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but when you're in it, and you've got a million other things going on in your day, sometimes we need that gentle reminder. Help them feel safe. Um, this is a time helping them feel safe that if there comes a time where they forget who you are, if they feel safe, that situation is going to go a lot different than if they don't feel safe with you. They may not remember your name, your relationship, who you are, but if they know that I know I'm safe with this individual, it's going to help mitigate issues big time. Help navigate doctor's appointments. So taking them to their appointments, we're following up with the doctors. You might have to get a medical power of attorney put in or ask them to let the doctor office know that you can make appointments for their behalf and listen to them. I know again that this sounds like a very simple thing, but again, we get busy. Our days can get away from us. So maybe even if it's just scheduling in 30 minutes to listen to them, again, that social connection is going to be important. Now we're going to navigate into the glymphatic system. So I'm really excited to talk about the glymphatic system because it is newer knowledge, and there's a lot of research coming out lately, but we're still learning a lot about it. So what is the glymphatic system? The glymphatic system is a microscopic waste clearance system that utilizes a unique system of perivascular channels formed by the astroglial cells to promote effective elimination of soluble proteins, metabolites from the central nervous system. Besides waste elimination, the glymphatic system may also function to help distribute non-waste compounds such as glucose, lipids, amino acids, and neurotransmitters related to the volume transmission in the brain. The glymphatic system functions mainly during sleep and is largely disengaged during wakefulness. So, what does this mean? The glymphatic system uses cerebrospinal fluid, as well as with fluids inside the brain, to sweep away extra fluid and waste out of the brain as we sleep. So, what is glymphatic malfunction? So, issues or malfunctions with the glymphatic systems have been linked to major depressive disorders, Alzheimer's, strokes, migraines, and Parkinson's. This is a bit of a visual for you. So, this is inside the brain. Here are your blood vessels, and this green line coming down, that's your glymphatic system right here. What roles, what role does the glymphatic system play in major depressive disorder and dementia? So, this particular study looked at the link between glymphatic neuroanatomy and trauma experience in patients with major depressive disorder. They found there is a relationship between glymphatic dysfunction related to the blood-brain barrier integrity and psychological trauma, where glymphatic impairment may play a role in trauma-related symptomatology. They took participants, they recruited participants through the depression and anxiety centers at a medical school. They were aged between 18 and 64, had an existing diagnosis of major depressive disorder or a psychiatric diagnosis. Patients with anxiety were included in the major depressive disorder group, an exclusion criteria, a history of substance abuse, psychotic disorder, bipolar disorder, intellectual disability, OCD, or a current diagnosis of major depressive disorder with psychiatric concerns, pregnant, nursing, or have contraindications to the MRIs. And the reason they want the contraindications is the MRIs is they're doing brain scans. So the measures that they used were self-reported. The SCID looked at the duration and onset of depressive episodes, where the MADRS provided information about specific symptoms of major depressive disorder as well as severity. And this research used the MRIs for brain imaging. There were some limitations to this study. It only included 21 people in the major depressive disorder category and 21 in the healthy control category. And also the study population was from a small area. But they found prolonged states of stress, as seen with major depressive disorder, may predispose people to or patients to subtle physical altercations in their neuroanatomy. This prolonged state of stress may lead to pro-inflammatory cytokines, resulting in brain barrier breakdown and leakage, causing dilation of glymphatic structures. The researchers also note that although major depressive disorder is not a neurodegenerative disease, major depressive disorder is highly associated with Alzheimer's, Huntington's, MS, and Parkinson's. The second study used similar methods to the previous study. However, their population was larger, consisting of mostly women, with the average age of population being 24. This study was similar to the last one. However, they looked at parts of the gray matter in the brain that were impacted. The method: patients were recruited from outpatient psychiatric department in Remen Hospital and Wuhan University, and also recruited from local colleges and communities. Similar exclusion criteria: under 18 or over 55, presence or history of other mental illnesses or major neurological disorders, substance abuse or dependent on contraindications to MRI, pregnant or for some reason left-handed or mixed-handed. I'm not sure why that was considered. Their findings, they looked at the way the glymphatic system interacts with the thalamus with respect to depression. They found there was a correlation with thalamus vulnerability to the glymphatic system, but this was only one system done, so more research is definitely needed to understand this connection. Some considerations: the researchers did note a correlation between a poor glymphatic function and major depressive disorder. They also note that participants were around 24 years old years old of age, whereas the studies conducted on the individuals between 53 and 59 did not have a correlation. It could be because that the glymphatic function decreases with age, creating different results in different age groups. Oh, so what are some current controversies with this subject? We're still learning a lot about the glymphatic system. There's still so much we don't know about the drainage system. The discovery of the glymphatic system is recent, and we don't have a lot of research on it yet. And the methods used to better understand the glymphatic system are inconsistent, making it harder to determine the true accuracy of the research that we have so far. We still don't know what causes it. There's theories, like a stagnant lymphatic system. They believe that the glymphatic system flows into the lymphatic system. So if the lymphatic system isn't functioning properly, maybe the glymphatic system has nowhere to go. But we can still support people that we may suspect have a poor functioning glymphatic system. And the best way we can support the glymphatic system is through quality sleep and effective sleep hygiene practices. For those that may have major depressive disorder, this can be a little bit more challenging. And this, Yanitel suggests that antidepressants can help to reset the circadian clock to help promote sleep, although it's not uncommon to still see sleep disturbances with the wake cycle. And although this was the recommendation, they also mentioned that we still need more research to understand why there's an issue in the first place. So the one theory is the glymphatic influx and efflux influenced by arousal state, pulse, respiration, body position, and a few other factors. There's, and like we discussed, the lymphatic stagnation could be a potential cause. We do know for sure there is a connection between the sleep disturbances and a suppressed glymphatic system. All studies concluded that same finding. Some future considerations. There was another study I found, it was very small, looked at vagus nerve stimulation impacts and the clearance system of the brain, like the glymphatic system. It was done by using vagal nerve stimulation device in mice. They did find the vagus nerve stimulation did help with glymphatic drainage. However, the study was done in mice and it seems to be an isolated study, but it's something that we can keep an eye on as research progresses. Um, we don't have enough research to say this is effective on humans, but something that we could consider. And when we're talking about the role of caregivers, there's a very good chance that their vagal nerve is being impacted. So myself, I would probably want to implement vagal nerve stimulation practices, even if we don't know for sure concretely that it will be benefiting them, because it will give them benefits in other arenas. So there was a lot of research that I looked at that did leave me with a lot of questions, but one that I thought of was the lymphatic concepts have articulated a function of the transport system by demonstrating its role of the amyloid B clearance. The lymphatic system clears key proteins involved in neurodegeneration, and conversely, inhibition of lymphatic transport accelerates protein accumulation and cognitive decline in mouse models of Alzheimer's disease, traumatic brain injury, and Parkinson's. And there is also a connection between major depressive disorder and Alzheimer's. Depression is a precursor to Alzheimer's. So I'm curious what, if any, and we haven't talked about it, but one of the genetic factors for Alzheimer's is the APOE4 gene. So I'm curious what, if any, the role the APOE4 gene plays in major depressive disorder as well as the glymphatic system. Depression is another subject that we don't have a lot of information on. I don't have the answer to this question. We do know, again, that there's a connection between major depressive disorder and Alzheimer's, and major depressive disorder is widely misunderstood, which left me kind of wondering, is it related to the APOE4 gene? We don't know. Maybe we'll find out one day if there is any signs to show that it is related, but it just kind of left me wondering if that might be a contributing factor. So in summary for the glymphatic system is a waste system for the brain. The glymphatic system functions during sleep. Poor glymphatic function can lead to major depressive disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, migraines, and major depressive disorders highly associated to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and headaches. So if you're here today as a caretaker, I would like you to know that you're not alone, even if it feels that way. You're allowed to ask for help. You don't need to take this road alone. Therapy is not for the weak, it's for the strong. And as a caregiver, therapy can give you the tools and resources to make this journey a little easier. Many caregivers have a hard time asking for help. Don't be a hero. People were never meant to travel this journey alone. If you're hesitant about therapy, I encourage you to go. I know it's scary, but therapists have a lot of tools that can help you navigate this journey. People will want to help you, but everyone's different. The way to get help is to tell people exactly what you need from them. Maybe you just need to vent. Maybe you're not looking for solutions. Maybe you need someone to help take over something. Just let people know how they can help you. If you're here as a CNP or a practitioner, you have more tools and knowledge than you think you do. You're needed now more than ever. And I'm so glad you chose this path. I know it's not always easy. We don't always have the answers, and imposter syndrome is real, but you're here to make an impact, even if it seems small. I know that we can look at cases and think, this is too much for me, and maybe it is. We need to know when we can help and when we need to make a referral. But I guarantee you know a lot more than the person that's sitting in front of you. When people get this news of a diagnosis, all knowledge, reason, and common sense go out the window. Sometimes it's simply a matter of reminding our clients about the basics. And we know it takes an average of 8 years to get a diagnosis. So you have 8 years before they get a diagnosis to help navigate a lot of the diet, lifestyle considerations that we can help to potentially prevent, mitigate, or eliminate in illnesses. So I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to open the floor for questions. I just want to let you know, if you want to get in touch, you can follow me at Holistically Curated on Instagram. My website's holisticallycurated.com. And I also have my email, ashleighgrave@gmail.com.
Oh, wow. Ashleigh, thank you so much. I love that you've covered so many aspects, not just of dementia itself, but for the caregiver, and some practical strategies there, because that's really, really needed as well. So everyone, question and answer. We have a couple questions that have come in already, but if you have a question, put it in the Q&A box. It's usually down below your videos there, and we'll work through them one by one. So I don't know, Ashleigh, how about I'll read them out and then.
Sure.
Okay. So a little note here, teens dealing with deafness can also take creatine to support processing memory. That I believe is a comment.
Yeah.
Etta, the same person, says, did you mention creatine is good for menopause?
I did. And like I said, any woman who will experience menopause, in my opinion, should take creatine even before perimenopause, because we know that it can help to stabilize muscle mass. And when women get to perimenopause and menopause, muscle decrease happens. So we want to preserve as much muscle mass as we can, and it will help with that. Creatine is also excellent for cognitive quality. So when women go through perimenopause and menopause, it's not uncommon to see cognitive decline, memory loss, confusion, a lot going on in our body. So I recommend taking it at any point in time, even before perimenopause and menopause, and even after, to help support. There's so much it's probably one of the supplements I have seen most research on is creatine.
Wow, that's incredible. Ashleigh, on your last slide, you had put your email address, and that was regarding some promotion with the self-publishing. So I'm going to put that back in the chat in a moment. It's ashleighgrave@gmail.com. Another question for you. In terms of heavy metals, how receptive are seniors to doing things like this, and their caregivers as well? And then how would you approach that?
So this is a world that not everybody is going to be on board with, but so with my loved one, I just did it. We did smoothies. We just did different things and supplements, and they didn't mind it. I would want to show probably some of the research, or just say, we can try it. Like, at worst case scenario, it doesn't change. The reality is that many of us have heavy metals in our bodies. I believe there was research done on umbilical cords, and where they found, I think, 240 toxins in the umbilical cords of unborn children. So odds are it doesn't matter your age group. If you're born overloaded. So that would be probably a really good way to get the conversation started. Sometimes it's just gentle beginning. Sometimes we can't just dive right into, let's do this heavy metal detox. It can be, let's just do these natural things. Let's have social connection. Let's exercise. Let's do some supplements. Let's do some diet change. And oftentimes when people start to see, wow, it's not woo-woo, this isn't nonsense, these guys know what they're talking about, they'll be a little bit more receptive to trying new things.
Oh, okay. So nice practical strategies there. And as we know, as CNPs, it's different in every case. Okay, a question here from Karina. How would you recommend handling friends or family that are simply stuck in old ways of handling health strategies? My dad's wife, before he died from Alzheimer's, simply would not listen to anything I suggested, as their doctors shrugged me off, as well as the staff at the facility, which I knew would have helped him immensely.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that that was your experience, especially from the medical team. They're not always on board. With my loved one, I had said that the memory score improved significantly, and she said, keep doing what you're doing. So I told her what I was doing. She's like, oh, no, don't do those things because they're going to impact other factors. So handling friends or family, again, I've been there. Sometimes it's just a matter of giving them small bits of information. My dad would never listen to anything I ever had to say unless Dr. Oz said it. So sometimes it's a matter of showing them someone else that has this information and saying, look, this person that you trust wrote this article or has this book, or they've suggested this. With family and friends, sometimes they're the hardest ones to get on board with things, but when we can show them another person that they trust has also said the same thing as you, it kind of echoes and sort of helps can move people forward in trying new things. And the medical team is very hard to navigate sometimes. There were things I just didn't tell my loved one's doctor that we were doing. I just had the knowledge myself, and I just opted to exclude it because I didn't want them to dismiss any concerns. There are some medical teams, Western medicine doctors, that will be a bit more receptive. I know it can be really hard to ask her to switch to a new medical doctor, especially depending on where you are. I understand BC has a massive shortage of Western medical doctors. Maybe would they be interested in a naturopathic doctor as well? Could be another option.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ashleigh. Do you have any practical strategies? Like you mentioned smoothies. So like as people decline in age and health, sometimes their appetite goes down. So what kinds of things, practically speaking, have you found to be helpful?
For sure. So smoothies are a big thing. I find as people get older, they are less likely to want to have meat. So finding vegetable options, like there's a lot of pastas now that have only one ingredient of, they've got some soy-based ones, they've got red lentils, they've got bean-based ones. So incorporating some of those types of pastas that can be a little bit easier. I'm big supporter of supplementing protein because we know it's important, and the older you get, the more protein your body will actually need. So I'm a believer of supplementing in protein powder. Maybe it's adding it in yogurt or chia seed pudding, any ways that you can sneak it in, or even just having the drinks on their own can be soft and gentle on the stomach, and a lot of them taste pretty good. So I would recommend those methods.
Okay, great. Thanks. A question: if someone is interested in becoming a mental health coach along with being a CNP, is it recommended to have a prior education and credentials in mental health?
So let me tell you my experience. So I did the mental health fellowship, and it was myself and a lot of naturopathic doctors. And some of the struggles I had with them, despite the naturopathic doctors being really wonderful individuals to work with, they had a lot more tools and resources. Then they can do prescribed medications. They can do blood work. It would be nice to work with a naturopath that likes to work in mental health. But as far as becoming a coach, I don't know if there's any programs in particular, but we can do a ton with diet and lifestyle changes. There's a lot of knowledge or showing of mental health issues like depression and anxiety stemming from the gut, and we know how to help the gut. We can help people with that. I would perhaps just preface when doing mental health coaching that they may also, if they need to seek medical support for antidepressants, just make sure that that's clear, and that you also just make sure to let them know that you're not a doctor, it's not medical advice, so that just for liability. But when I work with people with mental health, that's where I'll start with reframing. We'll talk maybe about somatic work. We'll talk about diet, lifestyle. We'll talk about get outside at first thing in the morning without sunglasses or glasses. Well, and at nighttime as the sun rises and the sun sets, to set those sorts of things. And we just give them those types of practical tools that they can use and implement. But I would also say, if you feel like you need some more support, like antidepressants, you're going to want to talk to your doctor about what can come along with them. If they choose to take them, we also know we can look up on some platforms of what the deficiencies might come along with them, with the antidepressants, and support them that way too.
Yeah, for sure. And IHN does offer a continuing education course, nutrition and mental health. I've taken that. Paul Demita teaches it. It's excellent. A lot of the mental health conditions, a little bit on dementia, but it really is empowering, gives you a lot of tools. So you can check that one out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here's one. If I know someone who seems to be getting dementia, how can you start helping them? And also, is there a specific type of creatine?
Yeah, some people will be, no one wants to get that diagnosis. So getting someone in the door to see a doctor will be hard for the diagnosis. All they really did was a memory test that you can literally get on Google. So you could do the memory test and say, hey, look, I found this. You want to do it with me? And some of them were really challenging. I remember sitting with my loved one thinking, I don't really know. Like, I would struggle with this question. Is one way you could start. And I would also recommend the supplements. Sometimes it's easier. So let's say creatine, for example, it might be easier to say, oh, it's better for dementia, which I think, maybe we've got that. Maybe instead you say, you know what, we want to have creatine for muscle growth and development so that we can age healthier. Sometimes it's a matter of flipping the script. And the type of creatine, it starts with an M. I'd have to go double check and see exactly. But the one that starts creatine, it starts with an M, that one. I can get the answer though and give it to you. Did I answer that? Was there anything I missed there?
Yeah, no, not in that question.
Yes.
Make a note about
monohydrate.
The type of
monohydrate. Someone put it in there. Yes, thank you.
Oh, monohydrate. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so wonderful. A comment, interesting, the connection with dementia and Parkinson's. Is it magnified by a specific gene that one has, or is there a blood test or something available to find out? Is it environmental? What are your thoughts?
So that's really, left. So when I was doing the research on the glymphatic system, it did leave me with a lot of questions. I think as we learn more about the glymphatic system, we're going to get some of these answers. Right now, it's a little bit unclear. Part of the issue is that the studies were done also different. We don't have a lot of replicating studies in them. And yeah, I mean, it left me kind of wondering, is major depressive disorder the precursor for these? Is that what we need to address first? Or is it a gene that's leading to things like major depressive disorder that can lead to things like Parkinson's? Is it we're living such stressful lives now that our sleep patterns aren't very good? We have our phones beside our bed. We got Wi-Fi's coming in at us, or shift work, things like that. So I'm not sure. The only thing that was consistent throughout all the research was that sleep is going to be huge for prevention if it stems from the glymphatic system.
Okay, fantastic. And as a CNP, like, we know all kinds of lifestyle things to moderate the environmental effects. So we're uniquely positioned to help with that. A couple of nice comments. Thank you. Love your presentation. Thanks for sharing your experience. One from me, I just really liked how you used reframing language for the caregiver. And have you had experience where you've helped a person with dementia as well as their caregiver?
Yeah, myself.
Yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Family deal,
Yeah, that was one of the best tips I took away. So when my loved one was diagnosed with dementia, I did end up going to see a therapist, and that was my biggest takeaway from my entire sessions with her, was the reframing. Because prior to this conversation, it was me constantly stressed out, like me driving in a car trying to hold it together, or like me coming home trying to keep it together to not just like fall to pieces every single time we had to have this conversation. So I talked to her about that. I was like, I'm struggling, and then that's going to lead to burnout. It's leading to more stress. It's leading to way more issues for me. And she's like, well, but couldn't you instead say, oh, I get this extra time? I'm like, you're right. Absolutely. I have this extra time. And since I did that, when I say it can stop you from spiraling in seconds, it's from my experience, it did stop me from spiraling in seconds in the car. And I can then go back to being present in the moment with someone that I do have time with. The time's not up. I've got time.
Yeah, I love that. And thanks for sharing that. So informative, so timely. We really need this information. As you said, we need experts out there who can support people who are going through this. And thank you all for attending. Great to have you here. So this concludes our webinar, and I wish you all...
I think I see one more question there. I don't know if you have time to answer it by chance. I think it just popped in as we were doing the draw. Okay. And it was, is the loved one thriving on the protocol? I would say yes. We no longer have 6-month visits. We no longer have to go every 3 months. We haven't been for a while. I called to say, do you need him to come in? Nope, we're good to go. We'll just as needed. So yes.
Okay, that is fantastic news, and very, informative and uplifting as well. So I think that's it then. So Ashleigh, thanks again. Thanks everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks everybody.